Welcome to Spiritual Psychology. My name is Renee LaValle McKenna. I'm a therapist and shamanic healer. And today I want to talk about the mask self. We all have a mask or false self to some extent, and it generally covers up or sits in opposition to who we really are, our authentic self. It's funny to talk about having a mask self these days with coronavirus where everyone's wearing a mask. And there's a little bit of a metaphor here because wearing masks in public is something that we've all agreed to do to be compliant. And the mask self that we develop as part of our ego personality is also about being compliant. Something we put on, like a social mask. And like the masks that we're wearing now to protect us from coronavirus, the idea of a mask self is to be protective. The social masks we wear generally are an attempt to get approval from others and to defend our vulnerable self from being hurt or rejected. We develop our social mask in response to our parents or caregivers who have their own preferences and things they approve of or disapprove of. And particularly if there's punishment or disapproval or withholding of emotional attachment or connection in response to certain behaviors or attributes we have, then children learn very quickly, even as infants and very young children, to adapt themselves. There's a feedback loop between children and their caregivers of what's okay and what's not okay. And children will generally naturally suppress the things that are disapproved of and try to enhance the things that get them love and attention. This isn't a very conscious process. And so we internalize these ideas of what's okay and what's not okay about us. So the good news about this is that this is a natural adaptive skill set that can really allow us to navigate and survive often difficult circumstances. Although the circumstances don't have to be difficult, because I think everyone develops a mask self to some extent, trying to please others and get love and approval. Of course, there's a wide variation of how masks develop, and if love and approval isn't available, then there's different mask selves of not needing anyone, becoming aggressive or a perpetrator yourself. There's such a wide range of masks we can create and wear and not even realize it. Some people have the sweet, kind, agreeable mask. Some people have a caregiver mask, a tough guy mask, the over-responsible hard worker, an intellectual mask. We can see the clothes that we wear, the way we keep our homes, the way we groom ourselves and the cars we drive, even the work that we do, can all be part of a mask, of an idealized self. Although these things can help us move through the world and provide a lot of protection for us, there's a couple of big problems. The biggest problem with the development of a mask self is that it's not who we really are. Now, certainly, our false self, our idealized self, could be a reflection of who we genuinely are, but a lot of times our authentic self gets suppressed and a mask takes its place. And the tragedy of this is that the only path to true fulfillment in our life is to live who we really are. And sometimes who we really are is completely underdeveloped. Sometimes it's just suppressed or put in the closet, but sometimes it never gets to develop at all. I know for myself, I decided early on that being vulnerable and sensitive was not the way to go. My parents were pretty intellectual and feelings were relatively unacceptable in my house. And so as an incredibly feeling-oriented, sensitive person that I've come to finally understand that that's who I really am, I had to completely suppress probably 60% of my authentic self. That's completely unconscious, but my explorations of spirituality, my hunger to deeply connect with people, and my fascination with the mystery of feelings and felt experience that are all so central to who I am as a person, I didn't even start exploring that stuff till I was in my mid-20s. The first time I went into therapy, the therapist asked me what I wanted to get out of the work, and I said, I want to get some feelings. I don't have any. My introduction to the concept of the mask self came through this fabulous personal growth work called the Pathwork, developed by Pierrakos in the 60s and 70s. Eva was a fascinating person. There was kind of an explosion of really cutting edge personal growth work in the 50s through the 70s. And she was one of the few women that was really in there with all the men. And the quality of information in the Pathwork lectures is really outstanding. Eva channeled this information from a group of souls that called themselves the Guide. I was never interested in channeled work. You would get an eye roll from me about channeled work until I read this material. I'm going to put a link to the Pathwork website. There was about 300 lectures that she did over the course of 25 years. The lectures are all available for free. Pathwork continues to be an international organization, although it's not very well known. But again, the quality of the material speaks for itself. So the first problem with the mask is that it keeps us from revealing who we really are, just like a mask we wear. And one of the big downsides of that is that we're only relating to people from this mask. And so if people like us or love us or have opinions about us, we know on some level they're only liking or loving our mask. And it actually reinforces the idea that who we really are is unlovable, unworthy, or unacceptable. And it's only when we have the support, encouragement, or courage to be our authentic and vulnerable self that we can really experience love and genuine connection. The idea of imposter syndrome really grows out of the mask self. Because again, we know on some level we aren't revealing who we really are. And so we can't actually experience what we most deeply want, love, approval, connection, if we're only interacting with people through this mask. Another issue with wearing a social mask is that it's generally an idealized idea of who we should be, and we can never live up to that because it's idealized. And so there's never a place we can rest. There's never actual self-satisfaction or genuine self-esteem because we're constantly measuring ourselves against some perfect ideal. And the very nature of being human is a unique, quirky, specialized configuration that each of us gets to be. We're each a unique configuration of consciousness that has nothing to do with perfection. It's like walking through the forest and every tree is different. Is there a perfect tree? No. Each of them is unique. Same with people. There's no such thing as a perfect anything. And so the mask self generally keeps us in a perpetual state of not being good enough, which generally requires the development of an inner critic. I have a podcast on dissolving the inner critic you can look up. And so just like the idea that when we lie, we often have to tell other lies to cover up or keep up the lie that we originally told, the same thing happens with the mask, because it is a bit of a lie. So we have this false self, and then there's other things that need to be developed to keep that false self in place. And so the work is to drop the mask. Understanding what masks we wear can be helpful, but it's not necessary. What is necessary is to get in touch with our body-felt, emotional, energetic experience from the neck down. Our intellectual self, our rational self, the narrative, story-building self, which is generally in our head, is often a liar. Although it has our survival in mind, it often doesn't really hold our highest good. Because our highest good is rooted in trust and wisdom, in the truth that, again, this quirky configuration that's uniquely us is exactly who we're supposed to be. And our head is often completely engaged in generating the mask. Leonard Cohen said, "There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." And it's been my experience that the things that I believed were the most unacceptable about me, that are actually connected with my authentic self, are the things that most deeply connect me with others. It has often been through my woundedness, my brokenness, that my most powerful, healing, and vulnerable connections have been made with others. It's why I love my work, because people come to therapy because they're fucked up. They're desperate. They want help. They're willing to self-reveal who they really are. And generally, who they really are is amazing. I love people, but you can't actually love a mask because it's fake. And I love to love people. I love exploring the mystery of who we really are. It's infinite. Each of us is a portal to the infinite, but only if we get in touch with what's genuinely happening underneath. It's like mining for gold and diamonds. And they exist within every one of us, but you got to get below the surface to find the good stuff. My own personal growth work has been a long and repetitive process of purification, of stripping away, of peeling the layers of the onion, trying to be more and more who I really am in the world, facing my own question, am I good enough? I remember when I first started doing a podcast and I thought, oh, should I lose my Boston accent? Do I swear? What kind of face do I put out? And I'm not going to tell you that I'm done. I came here with a lot of bags and I'm still unpacking. But I know I'm more who I really am than I've ever been. And I'm happier and more grounded and more fulfilled than I've ever been. Is there more work to do? Always. But that's what makes it interesting. The question, am I good enough, is the wrong question. For me, I think the question is, if I act authentically, how will the universe come to meet me? Because it does. Because I'm inseparable from it. I am a part of it. And what we put out, we get back. If I put out a mask, I'm going to meet other masks. If I put out my authentic self, I'm going to meet other authentic selves. If I'm vulnerable in the world, I will be met with vulnerability. That's my experience. So your homework is to consider the masks you wear, and do you have the balls to take them off? And what happens if you do? Is anybody home? What does your real self need? Do you even know who it is? And if you don't, it's your job to find out. Because I'm going to tell you, I never met a real self I didn't love. That's why I love my work. Masks, generally, they're kind of annoying. Real people, they're aspects of God. And we all are little tiny God pieces walking around with masks on. So I dare you to take it off and see what happens. Blessings on your path until we meet again. This is Renee LaValle McKenna for Spiritual Psychology.